going to talk about is my model, which is called catch, pause, repair. So we know about CPR in health. What about emotional health? And I truly believe in simple things on repeat. To me, that's sustainability. If you can't do something with your children, with your spouse, with yourself that's repeatable every single day and it's practical, you're not going to do it. So CPR is a simple way. So what I'd like all of you right now to do, you can write it down, you can think about it, but in the last week, what is something that has triggered you? And when I say trigger, you find yourself outside of your body, that stress and anxiety is very physical, and you can't think rationally. And most likely what you're having is what's called an amygdala hijack. And what happens when we're in a state of stress or anxiety, everything goes down to the base part of our brain and we go into fight, flight, or freeze. Essentially your IQ goes from 100 to 0 in 5 seconds flat. And so we all have, you know, buttons that are being pushed. Okay, you're gonna say it's your spouse, right? You're gonna say it's your kid. You're gonna say it's COVID. But whatever it is that triggers you in the course of a day, and it could have been traffic already today, it could have been Skype, it could be any of those things. The first C is catch. We wanna catch ourselves before we escalate. It is perfectly normal to have overreactions throughout the course of a day. But we want to get to the point that we catch ourselves before it escalates into a text that you don't want to send, into an email that you don't want to send, into an encounter with somebody. And part of it is really about what part of it is being compassionate with yourself. And so this is what I love about what I do as a professor, because a big part of what I do is I teach about abnormal psychology, and essentially everywhere we look, we think we're abnormal. We're actually very, very normal reacting to an abnormal situation like COVID. So if we catch ourselves before we escalate and we have these sensations where we're not fully in our body, then what we can do very quickly is move into pause. Because in the space between the basement of your brain, which is your amygdala, your limbic system, and with me right now, you take a deep breath. It can take as little as 60 seconds of breathing space to get you from this panic part of our brain, which is an overreaction. You're not upset that there's not a parking spot. It's not about the traffic. It's not even about, dare I say, COVID. It's the fact that you don't have the resources to deal with whatever it is. And what ends up happening is everything piles up. So when we go from catching ourselves, okay, this is not me. I'm teaching full-time now online. And it was interesting at the end of the semester last year because students, and we were all in an all is one situation, kumbaya, everybody was in it, right? And then in the summer, we went sort of from the panic into the sort of exhaustion mode, and because I teach in summer school too, and I was starting to get emails and reactions from people at work that I'd never experienced before. And so what I had to do is take a pause, because guess what? It wasn't about me. It wasn't even about the student. They were completely overwhelmed. And so CPR, as I go through it, and remember this is like a Coles Notes version of it, CPR is a framework, here we go, is a framework for handling these situations when we're completely overwhelmed. When we're in this amygdala hijack, and this is a coined term by Dr. Daniel Goleman from Emotional Intelligence, that essentially there's a disconnect, because in our brain, in email, okay, think about an email that you received, and even in the title and the first word, it was so much that you didn't even want to read the rest of the email because you were convinced it was going to be way too much. And then you go back the next day, after you've taken a pause, you read the entire email, you listen to the whole voicemail, and it was good news. But when you're in that catch position, we are being triggered, And for all of us, okay, we've been around a long time. We're in it, like, age gives us perspective, and this is a compliment. And so that something that may have triggered you at work is actually related to something that happened in your very first job. Something that triggers you in your spouse, with your spouse, Gordon, may be in fact about your mom and not your spouse. You know? So what happens is you go from, you catch yourself when you're overreacting, you take a step back, like a literal step back, and what's happening, like right now, right here, we're living in this world where there's not a lot of boundaries between us and the people around us. And so when I sit down to work at my computer, I put combat boots on. And that's one way of me grounding yourself. So part of the pause is feeling more expansive, grounding yourself, going for a walk away from your computer. So often even in classes, I'll just say, listen, we're gonna take a 5-minute break and then I'll come back. But what I find in this pause, even in the regular classroom, and this may be you too, if you look to your phone right away, you're not allowing yourself to be more expansive. And when we're in threat, what happens when we're in this, where we need to catch ourselves, our vision actually narrows because we're going after the prey. So in our pause, one of the things that we do, and I talk about this in my TEDx talk, Thriving Under Pressure, is you literally want to look up, because what that does is expands all of you. And instead of this one thing that's triggering you, that I look beyond my computer and there's a full-blown 6x6 photo of my honeymoon in Bellagio, you know, in Italy. And so that reminds me that my life is way more than this moment. And then finally, the repair. These are things that take longer. And this is really about the work that all of you do. And that's where we can do an assessment. And I love Maslow's hierarchy because he's one of the very first proponents of positive psychology, is that we do a needs assessment and see what's within your control. And I'm going to tell you, for me, and I'm sure for a lot of you this is the case, it's mostly physiological. I need to sleep, and it's free. I need to have an almond or 20, or go for a walk around the block. And this is also too, maybe I'm feeling unsafe. One of the reasons maybe I was triggered at work by an email from a colleague, or maybe the way someone looked at me, because there's something in my work history where it's related to that, and it's an unconscious thing. And even in the classroom, when I'm physically in the classroom, and obviously when I'm on Zoom, or we use Blackboard Collaborate, I look at and pay attention to the students, you know, how safe are they feeling? So whenever I reply to them, I always remind them sincerely. It's one thing to have words, but we have to follow it up with action too, that their success is my success, that we are truly in this together, that I want them to succeed. And at the same time, if you're not feeling safe because you're overwhelmed with time, because they're doing a lot of their tests that are timed online, I give them the information to go to Learning Commons for all of those things. Because my background, 18 years as a psychologist, what I'm constantly doing, and this is another course that I teach. I teach mainly in the nursing program, in the cloud nursing program, and it's to help them understand, and you too, that our health is as unique as our fingerprint, and our reaction to health is as unique as our fingerprint. So if something's missing, these are called deficiency needs. Well, self-esteem, that's learning. Self-esteem, that's work, that's purpose. These are all growth needs, but you can't get to there until you've taken care of what's below it. And so a framework like CPR, what it does is it takes all the emotions that we're overwhelmed with, puts a framework on it, and you think, oh, that's what's happening. And why resilience is so important is because the way I see resilience is that, you know, say this is balance, no one's really always in balance, but with everything that's added to your plate, it's going to just put you out of balance even more. And each of us has a different ruler, okay? So for some of us, we can bounce back a lot more easily. And bounce back is the word in Latin, resilient means leap back. And for some of us, if it's stretched too far, we'll never get back to where we are. But my perspective on psychology has always been very positive. So that I don't look, honestly, for the most part, I don't look at COVID as the worst thing that's happened to everybody. For some people, it may be an opportunity for them to grow. Now, if we go through personal trauma, there's a lot of blame and shame around it, but you did nothing wrong. We did nothing wrong. That this is an opportunity for us to actually grow our strengths. How many of you out there on the other side of the screen never knew technology the way you did and the way you do? In 2015, I was so overwhelmed by the level of stress in my students' class, on my classes, and I, throughout the year, I have as many as 500 students, that I had to start writing about it. So I have a psychology blog now, and I have 200 posts up there. And I also started a YouTube channel probably about 3 years ago. And so I have a ton of videos up there. And 2 years ago, I was actually teaching online. None of those things, especially teaching online, I wanted to do, but all of it allowed me to have more than one red umbrella. And that applies to Kim, to Gordon, to John, to Dr. Phil, to Brian, and everybody else listening. So that resilience is a little different than mental health. Mental health adds to our resilience. And one of the reasons I got so interested in resilience and stress is because there's something called the diathesis stress model. And there are certain things that put us more at risk for mental illness. And stress is a big part of it. So I figured as a professor and as a psychologist, as a writer, if I could go in and teach people what was missing, because for the most part, there's absolutely nothing wrong with us. We were just never taught how to swim. We were just thrown into the water and expected to swim. And so we all have to take responsibility. And I expect the most out of all of us, but at the same time, I give you and me breathing space for our tough days too. But if we can catch when we're starting to be triggered, if we can take a step back and pause, and then your programs, the health and wellness programs, figure out what's missing, so that by the time it comes or anything comes around in our life again, I'm triggered every single day, and I'm sure all of you are too. But the difference is I bounce back a lot quicker now, because I have sort of the memory of things before. So CPR. We are so much more than our stress, and we're so much more than our triggers.